What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This is the e-bike builder channel. And in this video, I'm going to teach you how to install a temperature sensor in a BAFANG hub motor like I've got right down here. They're all very similar. This method should work in basically any of them unless they end up changing something eventually, but this is how they've always seemed to work. And this can be done with a couple of dollars on Amazon. Some basic tools, soldering iron, some kind of like a knife or tweezers or something. So there's little tiny wires in here. We're gonna have to dig around in there and install the temperature sensor. So you can get the temperature sensors and then I got some thermal glue on Amazon. Not sure about the thermal glue, but that's what I've always used. I just kind of use that to hold the temperature sensor in place. So I'll put a link in the description for all of this stuff. So make sure you guys like and subscribe. I rickrolled you there right at the beginning. But yeah, so I'm going to show you now. So this is the How Chi Cheetah. I've got this front motor on it, and I've never had a temperature sensor in the front motor, but we're going to put it in there. We're going to put it in there tonight, bubs. We're going to start measuring the temperatures. So we're also going to need a fun-sized Twix bar for when we complete the job. And then it'll be extra fun. So I'm going to put this in the freezer because it actually melted in my pocket. Alright, so let's get back to it, bubs. So I got my soldering iron down here. I got a big old soldering gun. I think this is like a 250 watt soldering gun. And that is a little bit overkill, but that's just what I have right now. I don't have any of those little guys anywhere. I gotta get another one of those. They always seem to go missing, the little soldering irons. I don't solder those little tiny things very often. It's usually like some bigger wires that I'm working with. But yeah, so let's get this temperature sensor going, bubs. So I've already opened my motor. Oh! So this is a BAFANG G60 right here. And so I just took the 3mm Allen Buddy hex wrench. And there's 6 of these guys on the side plate. This G60 comes out of the right side, out of the drive side, and this is a front motor, so there's no cassette or anything on here, so that's not a big deal. Drive side works fine for these front motors. So yeah, we're gonna put a temperature sensor in this motor. Let's get to it. Alright, so I'll show you how this works. So I have a motor down here, the G60, and we're gonna grab it. And then so you can see right here, the motor cable goes through this hole in the axle. Alright, they drill the axle out. And the motor cable goes through the hole in the axle and it comes through right here where there's a bunch of black goop. And then you can see they bring the motor cable all the way up here. And this is kind of like the stator, the part of the motor that stays stationary with all of the copper windings and everything on it. And the axle, like this inner part of the motor all stays stationary. And then the rotor, this piece on the outside, is what spins. Right? And then the rotor is connected to all of the planetary gears. And then the planetary gears are connected to the shell on the outside of the hub shell. That's connected to the rest of the spinning wheel, the spinning hub, right? So this stuff doesn't spin. So inside of here there's these wires, right, that come out of the motor cable. And so you can see on this is a Hall sensor, kind of like a chip, printed circuit board, PCB. So you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 solder pads right here, and it says 5 volt, ground, Hull A, Hull B, Hull C, and then it says SP, and that's a speed signal. Okay, so 5 volt is the red wire, and these are little tiny wires coming out of this motor cable. There's 3 phase wires. There's a big thick green phase wire, a blue phase wire under here, and then there's a yellow phase wire going over here. So then there's little tiny signal wires. There's the black one, so that's the ground. 5 volt is the red one. Then hull A looks like it's the blue one. Hull B looks like the green one. And then hull C looks like the yellow one. And then there's this little tiny white wire, and that's the speed signal. And so the white wire, that speed signal, that there's this thing. Oh, I gotta get this grease off my shirt here. So usually on your motor, there's magnets. Usually there's 6 of them, and I don't know why in this motor there's only 1 of them. But these motors, like BAFANG motors, usually have 6 of them. So maybe this is just an older motor where they used to cheap out on the magnets or something, but I don't know. But this one only has 1 magnet in here. But these magnets, this part just stays stationary. No, this part is spinning around with the wheel. Alright, this part's spinning around with the wheel. So this magnet is spinning. That's the wheel spinning, right? And then in here on the stator, this little guy right here with the 3 legs coming off of it, this is like a magnet hall sensor kind of thing where it detects that magnet spinning around. So that thing is what sends the signal. And so it looks like on this guy it says, I can see like some letters and numbers on it. What does it say there? It says 4108135 on that thing. And that's a little like magnet sensor thing that detects that magnet spinning around. And then it sends a signal over the circuit board to that white wire way over here, the speed wire. So I guess it probably comes out of the sensor and the speed sensor, and it goes over here down this trace, and then it goes to the speed signal right there. And then it looks like, yeah, so it seems like, interesting. It seems like a somewhat simple circuit board. If anybody can explain how this works to me, that'd be kind of interesting. There's also a little QR code right here that I've never noticed. And there's some letters right here. But yeah, so I'll show you the temperature sensors. There's these little guys, thermistors, and you can get them on Amazon, and they're just these little funny things that you would usually see like hooked onto a circuit board. Now we are going to hook one onto a circuit board. So the idea is you have to get one of these bulbs, and then put it inside the motor somehow. And then we have to, there's 2 little legs that come down off of it, if I can get one out of here. They're all stuck to each other. Okay, so here's our thermistor. It's just this little buddy. And you get a whole pack of them for like cheap, like $5 or $10 from Jeff Bezos. And then so here it is. It's this little guy. Right? And there's just a thing on the end of it, and there's 2 little legs coming down off of it. So the idea here, I believe, is that, so one of these guys, one of these legs, we want to get hooked on to the, like that white wire, so that this thing is hooked to the white wire instead of that speed signal. And then you hook the other end of this, I believe, to the ground on the circuit board. is how it works, I believe. I'm gonna have to double check that here, and we're gonna let the GoPro cool down for a second. Alright guys, so I've just verified with Big Daddy Elon, ChatGPT, that, so I told it, what I do is I cut the white wire because I don't need the speed signal. Then I hook one leg of the thermistor to the white wire so that the thermistor temperature reading is coming out of the motor cable. So then Big Daddy Elon's telling me, yes, that approach can work if you're repurposing the white wire to carry the thermistor signal instead of the speed signal. Here's the correct way to do it. Steps to install the thermistor using the white wire. Cut the white wire. Since you don't need the speed signal, cut it inside the motor where it exits the stator. Okay, so that's what I was talking about, right? So we got to cut this white wire somewhere in such a way where we can also install this thing, glue this thing into the motor somewhere that is like, so the part of the motor that gets hot is this copper, and then like the little things that these stator laminations, those things that the copper is like coiled around, that's where it's going to get hot. So it's those like, those things where the copper is coiled around is where we want to, is the best place to read the temperature from. And so in the past, I have like been able to like tuck temperature sensors like basically like kind of in there, but I've also in my BBS02, like I basically just put it in the motor windings because that's how like people originally described it to me. But you don't want to put it directly in the motor windings because these temperature sensors can only handle like 120 C, but the motor can get up to like 150 C. So basically, like you just want to, you want this thermistor like hooked as close to the copper and like the stator thing as possible, but like these things only go so far, these legs. So it's got to be like kind of somewhere around where the white wire is on this ground spot where we want to solder it to. And it's usually easier to, we're gonna have to see what Big Daddy Elon says, but how I do this is like cut the white wire somewhere like in the middle so that it's still hooked to the bottom of the circuit board if you ever want to use it again. So that white wire is still there. So if you wanted to reconnect the speed signal again, you could to that circuit board. All right, and then I just like solder the thermistor like straight on to the top of the circuit board, like from the side kind of. It's just right here, you know, it says ground. It's the second solder pad over ground. So like basically like just get the thermistor in here somewhere where it's secure and like you can use some glue or whatever. And not like directly in the copper, but like hooked somewhere else here. And you can kind of bend these legs, but you don't want to bend them too many times. Like you can't really bend them back and forth. It's not good to bend them. Like you don't want to bend them, but just you can kind of spread them out enough just to get it into place like how you need it. But yeah, you don't want to like bend the legs back and forth at all because it'll just snap. They're just tiny. So this is something that's going to be like, it's too delicate. I don't have like a magnifying glass camera where I can film doing this. Like I got to get in here and be able to see what I'm doing up close. But I mean, yeah, I got to figure out a way to get this thing in there, touching this ground thing, and then also cut this white wire and then hook it, the other part of it, to the white wire. So I'm going to fiddle around with this a little bit and figure out where I want to put this thermistor that's going to be smart. Okay guys, so I've made a little bit of progress here. I kind of use the tweezers, and then so I can see that the white wire is kind of like pinned down in here. And so I was able to use the tip of my tweezers on this white wire to kind of like loosen it up a little bit down there. You don't want to mess up any of these other wires. Like the key is to don't touch any of the other wires. And you don't want to go through like the insulation, the plastic of any of the other wires. This white wire, like as long as you want some length of it still coming out of this motor cable, because that's where we want to send the signal through here. That's where we need the wire to work with. But in this case, with the way this thing's done, like, it's kind of the easiest to try and get this. I kind of wiggled these, I rearranged these wires a little bit. I got the black and the red wire, the 5-volt in the ground. I moved them out of the way a little bit so that I could kind of get the tweezers onto this white one. And now I'm trying to pull the white one back up this way from down here so that I have a little bit more length of it, but it's kind of pinned in here. And I want to try and move just this wire without having to change anything else in here. Would be ideal. So I'm like using my tweezers to not scratch anything, but get this little white wire coming. Hopefully, it seems like so far I've had the best luck getting tweezers like underneath it and kind of like pulling it up. There we go. Kind of pulling that white wire up and out of there without hopefully messing up anything else. And then, let's see here. It'd be ideal if we could keep doing that without messing anything else up. Oh. So now it looks like there's like a... Okay, let's see here. Okay, so this should be perfect. Nice. Okay, so you can see here I've kind of loosened up that white wire, and I've been able to get this tweezers like underneath the white wire, and I've exposed this white wire a little bit, and it's still got all of the white stuff on it, the insulation, and then it's still going out the motor cable, right? That's where we want it to go, is out the motor cable and then out through this connector so that we can send that signal to the controller. Ooh. And also the other end of the wire is still connected to the bottom of the circuit board, and we still have access to the other end of the wire right here. So like what we're going to do is cut this white wire right in the middle so that we can still access each side of it. We can still access that to rewire that if we ever want to, and then we can and then we're going to cut it, and then I'm going to hook the thermistor to ground right here, and then to the end of that white wire that is going out here, and then so that temperature reading should be coming out that white wire, right? Okay guys, so I successfully cut the white wire. So you can see here it's cut and it's under my fingernail. So I'm going to use my blade to maybe get like 1/8 of an inch or like 1/4 inch of that white stuff off of the wire, the insulation off of there. So you don't want to damage any of the wires going back out of this cable, out the axle, right? So that's like all of these other wires are important. And as long as we cut this white wire in such a way where we can work with it, then it should be all good. Alright, so now I'm going to take my soldering iron and my solder, wherever, over here, get the solder. So it's not going to take much. Like, you don't need much at all. Alright guys, so it really depends on how like they arranged everything in your motor, but so the tip of it, it's like right down in this little hole right here at the tip of my finger, like this little black hole. That's where the tip of it is, and then you can see the 2 legs of it that are sticking out here. So this thing is just like down in there, like right here is the tip of it, and it's touching the yellow. It's touching the yellow phase wire, and then it's touching the stator, and it's touching kind of like the motor coils. So it's kind of in there. So we probably won't want this one to get more than 120C. But then that kind of gives us a nice amount of room here where we can just bend one of these over towards that, let's see here. So how much length do we have on this wire? So we want this thing to stay out here. So I better grab my tweezers and pull it back out a little bit. Okay, so can you see this thing, how I've basically made like a 90-degree bend in this leg of it here? And then I've got this leg of it coming, it's bent out here so that it's touching ground. Kind of looks like a paper clip. And I bent one part of it going right on top of ground. And I'm just gonna make sure that it's still long enough to be able to solder it to this white wire. So I kind of actually want that other piece of it coming back this way even further. And then I'll try and bend this thing even more over towards ground. Alright, so I think this is kind of, we can work with this, boys. So I'll take a picture of this with my phone here. It's probably hard to see what's going on, but like, so I've bent you can see one leg of it is bent out, and it's like curly girl coming back this way. And we can cut this off with the flush cutters after we solder it. And then I'm just going to push it down with a soldering iron into that ground thing. And I don't even want to like totally like get the whole solder thing like wetted here. Like I just want to push down on the soldering iron until just a little bit of the solder starts to melt and this thing sinks down into it and hooks onto it. Like I don't want this whole thing we don't want this whole ground thing, this wire on the bottom of it, to come out of there. Like it's coming up through the bottom, but like you don't want to be pushing, like you don't want to like push that wire out of the circuit board, that ground wire, the black one on the opposite side. So I'm taking a video of what this looks like here. It's gonna look a lot better on my phone. So you can see I've arranged the thermistor here. I've cut this wire. We're gonna solder one end of it onto the wire, end of it onto ground. Here we go. I'm gonna do it now off camera. Can't do this with the camera going. Alright guys, so it seems like my thermal glue is kind of like bad here. I have the thermistor touching things in the motor. They'll just like transfer heat into it directly, so that's fine. I don't need the thermal glue to hold it in there. But I do need something that's like very tacky, that's just gonna hold this thing down. The thermistor kind of like, the leg of it kind of wants to like jump up a little bit. I bent it around a little bit and it's still kind of like, I need something really tacky that's just gonna hold that that wire and that thermistor down really well. So I think some JB weld should do it. Just a little bit. High heat resistant epoxy, 550 degrees freedom units. So no, I'm just gonna use a tiniest amount of this. This is way too much. You don't want this JB weld like anywhere else. But just enough of this so that like a slight little dollop of it. Not a dollop. Just like a smidgen. I don't know what the word is, boys. Tiny amount. Just enough so that it's tacky enough to hold this thing down. I want to get maybe like, see these little white, what I should have done is put the thermistor leg underneath these strings. I got to get some of this string, like this temperature resistant string that goes on there. But I'm just going to put a little dab of this JB weld on that string. So that this gets held down nicely, so we can just lift up the leg of the thermistor a little bit. And then don't get it in the motor anywhere. And then get this thing coming down here into it. And then I'll maybe just put some on top of that. So there's like... Alright guys, here we are. Here's my thermistor. I probably should have put it under those strings, but I just kind of like smushed it down. See this leg right here where I kind of smushed it down, and I JB welded it to that string. So now the string is JB welded. I think if I need to change it, I could just cut that string off, and then the JB weld is hooked to the string, and hopefully nothing else is really JB welded.
But yeah, there it is. I don't know if the GoPro can see it, but it's just like, it's a thermistor. It's hooked right here to ground, and then it's hooked to that white wire. So I'm gonna put this case back on here and then give it a little spin.
Alright guys, so I've got the motor put back on my bike here, and then I'm just on my phone. And I had to go back to look on Amazon at this thermistor. So it says it's a 10K NTC, and then I think it's 3435 as that beta value that we care about. Alright. So then we can go into the VESC tool, and I still have to plug my motor in here. I didn't do that quite yet, so let's get the motor connected, or all those signals and everything won't be connected to the motor. Let's see here. Gotta plug in this funny cable, this funny motor cable. There we go. Alright. Alright, so I'm gonna just reconnect to my VESC here. And let's go, so you can see motor temp is 0, so I still have it disabled. So go into motor config, and then under general temperature, we go to 10K NTC. And then, what was it? It was like 34, 35 or something. So I'm gonna type in 34, 35. Beta value for the thermistor, and then I'm gonna write that. And then, so it's this coefficient, so that's this coefficient for PTC, that's something else. So we've picked NTC, 10K, 25C, put in the beta value. I don't think this coefficient affects it. I think, well, then we can set the motor temperatures like down here. So on these motors, I usually make the temp cutoff like 120, and that's when the thermistor is going to start getting hot. And then I guess when it gets like, when it starts to get warmer, like it can get hot really quick. So I might tell it like 100 or something. So use 100C for the cutoff start. That's when, if it gets to 100, it's going to start rolling power back. And if it gets to 120, it's just going to stop. So now that I've set that motor temperature sensor type and the beta value is right, we should be able to go back to the real-time data and see our motor temperature, and there it is. So we've successfully installed the motor temperature. We've configured it in the VESC tool. We've got our motor temperature right here, so it says 21C. And if I look over at a thermometer in here, it says 67 in here right now. So let's see here. So it says 21C. So 21C2F. Sorry guys, I'm American. So it says 29C is equivalent to 69.8F. And that seems about right. Seems close enough. The thermometer, or the... Yeah, so when I look at this thing right here, the old LiftMaster thermometer, it says 69. Nice. Just like when I'm over at your mom's house. Alright. Alright, well, we got it, bubs. We got that temperature sensor put into this motor. It's kind of a delicate procedure. You just want to get it in there. You want to kind of make sure that the temperature sensor isn't like hanging out anywhere. You don't want to accidentally mess up any of those wires. The little hall sensor circuit board, those things are only like $20 or $30, like if you mess up the hall sensor. But the problem is that if you mess up the wires that are going out the motor cable like that, it's not easy to get more motor cables in the axle. Like you got to pull the old one out, and that's hard, and then you got to pull a new one through. So be careful of the wires that are going out of the motor through that cable. Like, and you don't want to cut any wires. If you accidentally cut a wire in such a way where there's like metal sticking out, or it's going to touch something else that's metal, I mean, you would want to get something to insulate it. I don't know, liquid electrical tape or something. But then, so after you're done putting the thermistor in there and soldering it to ground, And then that white wire that comes out the motor, just make sure that it's got like a low profile, and then you can put your motor's cover back on there, and like the inside of the motor and the axle can remain stationary, and then the outside, that outer cover, can spin around, and it's not going to be like breaking anything or touching anything inside your motor that you changed. And yeah, that's basically it, guys. So you've got a temperature sensor in my front G60 hub motor now that we never had before. So now I just have to do it on the rear motor, and then we're going to have dual temperature sensors on this dual motor Hauchi Cheetah also. So that should be fun. Like and subscribe. Let me know if this helped you out. Let me know if you got the temperature sensor in your motor working and functional. Yeah, like and subscribe, leave a comment. You know what to do, guys. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time on the e-bike builder channel. Peace out.